Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, I wanted to talk about a new bait that Z-Man introduced at ICAST just this July. And I've actually been fishing it since last October. I got a couple prototypes and was really excited. As soon as I got it, I knew that it was going to be a very important part of my arsenal. And more specifically, my chatterbait arsenal, because what I'm talking about is the new Tungsten Evo from Z-Man, which, as the name implies, it has a pure tungsten head. So really, there's nothing like it on the market right now. You know, a lot of people have mentioned the tungsten jackhammer. That's actually a bait that is composed of resin and tungsten powder. So it's actually a little bit larger profile head than it should be if it was real, you know, just solid tungsten like this one. Pretty much everything is the same as the Elite Evo that came out last year at ICAST. You know, pretty much all the components are exactly the same. It's just you have a tungsten head. So this bait right here, you know, to me, it really opens the door for really fine-tuning your presentation. And that's what I wanted to talk about today, is like where I really think that this is going to fit in, and maybe when you should choose it over other presentations or other chatterbaits, including the Elite Evo that looks almost exactly the same, or pretty much exactly the same, except for the head size per weight. Before we get started, I just want to remind everybody, if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy the videos that I put up on this channel, consider hitting that subscribe button and also liking this video and sharing it. You know, help me get that algorithm, you know, giving me some love. And you know, it's just also really good to share with your friends, and I think that there's a lot of really good information on this channel. So those are all great ways to support the channel. Another great way to support SonarFishing is to use the affiliate links that I put in most of the video descriptions. So all those things are awesome. So thank you in advance for all of that support. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the Tungsten Evo. So the main thing that when I started fishing the Tungsten Evo that I thought was a super important part of you know, making a 100% tungsten head on a chatterbait was the sound. Sound is very different with tungsten than it is with lead. Lead makes a more dull sound. It really dampens the sound. And when you have blade to head contact, there's times where that dulled sound may be an advantage, okay? But there's also, I think, a lot more times where added sound, added clacking sound can be a huge advantage for attracting more bites. And that's what you get with the Evo. As soon as you see some underwater footage, I wish I had some underwater footage that I've got on hand to show you guys, but you really notice the difference about the pronounced sound that you get from the Tungsten Evo than you do with say a lead jackhammer or a lead Evo or any other chatterbait, okay? The Tungsten Evo definitely has a different sound. And as we've seen with other categories of baits, you know, with like, especially like lipless crankbaits, I feel like lipless crankbaits have really evolved over the years in one specific way, and that is sound. You know, we started off with the original rattle trap, which had a bunch of BBs in there, and it made a ton of racket, and that was kind of the standard you know, design for a long time, was having a bunch of rattles that made a pretty big sound. But then manufacturers started to kind of experiment with maybe just a couple bigger BBs in there, using a tungsten BB or you know, just one solid steel ball or something like that, one knocker type design. And what we found as fishermen is that there are so many instances where that you know, the sound that the fish are used to hearing over the years, making that subtle switch over to something different that sounds different gets you more bites. And that's exactly how I feel about the Tungsten Evo. I think that this is going to be a bait where, especially in these first few years of it being introduced, I'm not even sure you can get this right now, but as it starts getting introduced to fish, I really think that you're going to be able to get more bites from fish that are pressured by, chatterbait anglers, but this bait's going to give off a different sound and vibration profile, and so you're going to be able to get some extra bites and possibly some bigger bites. I've found that really I can, in some situations, especially dirtier water, I get way more bites with the Tungsten Evo than I do with any other chatterbait, including the jackhammer, which is a big statement. Okay. So sound is a really, really big deal with this. So I think that you don't want to throw away all the other chatterbaits you got, the traditional lead heads, whatever they are, jackhammers, original, the elite, whatever it is. You don't want to get rid of those, but you want to have the Tungsten Evo on hand just as an opportunity to fine tune your presentation. Maybe it's just to, maybe you run through an area with a traditional, lead head chatterbait. And then once you feel like you've really fished the place out, but you think that there's still more fish, you can go through with the Tungsten Evo, give them something a little bit different sound, and get some extra bites. That is something that as tournament anglers we do all the time. And again, I think that the Tungsten Evo is going to play a bigger role for dirtier water when it comes to the sound, the sound feature, because in cleaner water, the fish are generally using their sense of sight, so it's not as big of a deal. But the sound of a bait is really important in dirtier water situations. So so if you're in dirtier water, I think the Tungsten Evo is probably going to be something that gets you some extra bites. The next thing that I think the Evo does really well, I don't think it, I know it because I've used it a lot, is because tungsten is more dense than lead, the head on the Tungsten Evo is much smaller per weight. Okay, so this 3/8 ounce Tungsten Evo has a much smaller head than a comparable Elite Evo that's exactly the same other than the head material. And that's going to do a couple things. Number one, it's going to, allow you to have a presentation that may look a little bit more realistic. To me, that's not as big of a factor for me, but the biggest factor is there's less bulk at the head. And when you have less bulk with any bait that isn't a floating bait, you're going to have less resistance, less water resistance, and the bait is going to want to stay deeper for longer. One of the things with fishing like a 3/8 ounce traditional lead head chatterbait is that that's not a lot of weight to keep the bait down. So a lot of times, like, I'm primarily fishing a 1/2 ounce chatterbait, just to maintain, 3 or 4 foot of depth while I'm reeling it pretty fast. But with the Tungsten Evo, because there's less resistance, because the head is smaller, it's going to want to stay down more. So I can actually use the 3/8 ounce over, say, a 1/2 ounce, which I think is really important too, for one big reason. If you can use a lighter weighted lure, you're going to lose less fish. The heavier the head of a bait, the more leverage a fish has if they jump up to be able to shake that bait. And I think that is a big thing that not a lot of people are talking about, is the fact that you can maintain a slightly deeper depth zone with the Tungsten Evo, and have a lighter weight, so less leverage for those fish to throw the bait. Now, 1/2 ounce chatterbait, that 3/8 and 1/2 ounce, man, you're not going to have a lot of fish shake that. That's not a ton of leverage, but it is, a 1/2 ounce is more leverage than a 3/8 ounce. So it does, you do have an opportunity to really have less lost fish by downsizing your weight. So I think that that's a big function. You know, if you go up to like a 3/4 ounce or a half or an ounce and a quarter jackhammer, those bigger ones, dude, those are fish losing baits. They're fish catching baits, believe me, and I use them a lot. I love to throw the heavier size chatterbaits, but when those fish come up, it's always a nail biter because those fish have so much leverage to be able to get those baits, throw those baits out of their mouth, especially the 1 1/4 ounce. That is a lot of fish that jump up, you know, end up shaking that bait out of their mouth. So anyways, guys, just wanted to kind of ramble on a little bit about my thoughts on the Tungsten Evo. I'll show you real quick the 3 different trailers that I'm going to be using with this chatterbait. The first one is the Diesel Minnows. This has been my favorite chatterbait trailer since, you know, day one fishing chatterbaits. You know, this is our first year fishing or filming Sweetwater. This is when I really started getting into chatterbait fishing, and figured out the Diesel Minnows was like just tailor-made for fishing on a chatterbait. Really good for warm water, shallow fishing nowadays. But I have started to use a lot of the straight tail segmented style minnow bait trailers, like the Razor Shads. This is a really good one that I've used a lot if I'm trying to get out deeper or if I'm yo-yoing a chatterbait. The new one that's a little bit smaller, a little bit smaller profile that I really, really love is the Chatter Spike. This one, very, very low resistance. You know, there's really no appendages at all, but it has a really natural action, and it also aids in that hunting action too, because there's not a lot of appendages on it. So those are the 3 trailers that I think the Tungsten Evo is going to work really well with. So anyways, guys, if you're interested in the Tungsten Evo or any of the trailers I just talked about, check out the description below for all the affiliate links. Again, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to this channel. And other than that, I'm going to see you out of the water. Make sure you trust the process.